Now, I want to go over some of this, and I know all of you are very well versed in a clinical interview, but I wanted to check in with some background information that I think is incredibly important. All of this you can kind of read through for yourself. Exploring inconsistencies is always one of the biggest ones for me, especially inconsistencies between what they're saying in the clinical interview and records. So records are so important in any kind of evaluation, but specifically cognitive evaluations. I love getting like IEPs, which is individual education plans from schools. If someone says that they were in the regional center, I love getting those records. I love getting other records just to check in to see where a person is today versus where they were 2, 3, 5 years ago, and what they tell me today versus what I can find in records. Oftentimes, it's completely different. And that's when I need to check in about level of effort and malingering. In someone's background history, their developmental history, in a cognitive evaluation specifically, I always ask about in utero exposure to drugs or toxins. How do we ask this of someone, of an adult? What do we know about your mom? Okay. I'm a little bit more forward than that. Was mom using any kinds of drugs or alcohol when she was pregnant? It comes down to the suicide question. If you're afraid to talk about it, they're going to be afraid to talk about it. Oftentimes the answer is, I don't know, I wasn't bored yet. Okay, great. So the follow-up question for me is, okay, did you ever see her use anything when you were young? Was she using any kinds of alcohol or drugs? And in my report, I say possible in utero exposure to crack cocaine because Mr. Jones reported that he saw mom using it frequently when he was a child. All right. Why is in utero exposure important? Developing brain. Our brains all develop in the same way. And the leading theory on ADHD, though I'm not going to be getting into ADHD here, is that it's often caused by microscarring on the brain that occurs in utero. Specifically, mom is using any kinds of drugs or alcohol, or she had a 24-hour flu. You know, it could be anything like that, but it caused microscarring on the brain that migrates in the same way developmentally as the brain expands, and then causes deficiencies later on. And we'll get into more of that at a different time. And this picture down here shows a 3-year-old child with extreme neglect versus a normal 3-year-old's brain. And I mean, I put this up there because it's such a great picture that shows that it's just incredibly different. The brains are completely different. And so abuse, trauma, neglect, early childhood attachment, in utero exposure, all of this affects the brain development, which in turn can affect their cognitive functioning. Just a little bit about the HPA axis, talking about stress hormones. The HPA axis is the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. It's a part of the neuroendocrine system that controls and regulates stress hormone. All right. Overexposure to this, specifically cortisol, can affect our brains, shrinking specifically of the hippocampus and cingulate. And what's the hippocampus responsible for? Memory. Very good. Memory. All right. So someone who has chronic stress can have memory problems, and someone exposed to chronic stress in childhood can be placed on this kind of hypervigilant stress for the rest of their life that can come out looking like ADHD, and it can come out as learning disabilities. So that's why in developmental history, when I'm doing a good clinical interview, I always ask about this stuff. And that's why I'm going over it today, because I want to emphasize how important it is to know about background. Also, with academic history, I want to know about highest grade completed. Now, I can't tell you how many people I've interviewed, hundreds of people I've interviewed, but I say, how far did you get in school? And they said, oh, I got a GED. Fantastic. What's the highest grade you got through in school? 6th. Why'd you leave? Drugs. All right. That's all a lot of information. Had I just stopped with, oh, you've got a GED, I wouldn't get all of that information. And I probably wouldn't think to follow up with, were you ever in special ed and why? You always, always, always need to know why they were in special ed and if they ever had a formal diagnosis of learning disabilities or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. If they ever had that formal diagnosis, that's fantastic. You want to know specifics. Right? Sometimes if someone says, I don't know, that's when I follow up with, well, do you ever remember someone saying the term dyslexia to you? Yes, that's what they said I had. I can't take that as truth, but maybe, you know, they might have had it. Gives me more to ask with collateral information when I talk to mom. Legal history, you also want to know about number of arrests, number of convictions. The difference between arrest and conviction is you can be arrested 100 times and never convicted. Never spend a day in jail. All right? That's why you want to know about both. You also want to know about types of offenses and age at first arrest. You know, were they killing animals when they were younger? Were they setting fires when they were younger? If someone says, oh, I was never in juvenile hall, then I come back with, all right, were you doing stuff that you were never caught for? Oh, yeah. All right, that's good to know. Employment history, you want to know the longest job they had, any history of homelessness, and then why do they leave their jobs? Do they quit or get fired? Why are they quitting their jobs? Oh, you know, the boss sucks. Okay. Are you able to read what's going on with the jobs? Are you able to do the parts of the job that require, you know, different things? What types of jobs? Were they all landscaping jobs? You know, or working in the kitchen? Okay, that says a lot more than someone who is, say, a front desk clerk. I want to know about relationship history, just because that's something to add in there, not necessarily because of the cognitive functioning piece. But with medical, I want to know about head injuries. Specifically, any head injuries with loss of consciousness, any head injuries without loss of consciousness, any history of substance-induced blackouts. I've often asked, have you ever been knocked in the head, car accidents, fights? No, no, no. How many times have you been knocked out from too much alcohol? Oh man, like 30 or 40 times. Each one of those is a head injury. Also, any operations with anesthesia. Some of the newest research, I didn't print out that article for you, but I actually got one just the other day, said that reported exposure to anesthesia in childhood can lead to learning disabilities. That's a really cool article. If you guys email me, I'll send you a copy. So you want to know how many operations or periods of anesthesia they were under, any history of diseases. A lot of people have hepatitis C. They don't consider that a disease. I don't know why, but that can affect their cognitive functioning, and any history of any other problems. You also want to know about mental health history. Age of first mental health contact, different psych meds that they've been on because of the interaction. So substance abuse history, moving right into that, that was a great caveat. Age of first use, what types of drugs, go through every single type of drug. You know, you have to, because if you don't, they won't tell you, right? My question is, how old were you when you first started using alcohol? How old were you when you first started using marijuana? The reason that I phrase it that way is because it's very easy to say no. So amount of use, date of last use. You want to know the date the last use, and you want to get them nailed down on specific ages. Don't let them say, oh, 2005. All right, how old were you in 2005? 40. Wait a minute, sir. I thought you said you were 55. So if it was 2005, no, the math isn't adding up here. How old were you? Figure out the age. If they give you a year, then go back and help them figure out the age and report it all in years of age. My main thing for building a rapport is sincerity and being genuine. Because if you go in there with the mask of professionalism, I'm just here to fill in blots, they're not going to pick up that you're there to help them at all. You know, if you're there sincerely interested and really wanting to get this information, not only for your job, but so you can do the best by them, they're going to pick up on even if they don't want to be there. You can make it fun, you know? One of the things that I get guys who are very, very resistant to start opening up, I'll just say, to heck with this. We'll talk about this in a little while. What's your favorite music? And they'll say something. And more often than not, I have it, because I've gotten really good at keeping the stuff they like. Metallica's like #1, by the way. And I will put on a song. I'll put on a song and I'll make it a conversation. You know what? You're here, I'm here. We've got some Metallica playing. Yeah. So why are you here? What's going on? You know, I know you don't want to answer these questions, and they'll start opening up. Even if the only gift you gave them was the gift of music. Calms the savage beast. So try that. All right. So also want to know about IV drug use and the importance of collateral information. Oh, you know, I love collateral information. Why? Because people lie. Oh wait, did I say that? They might not be forthcoming or honest. I'm being taped right now too. They might not be forthcoming or honest. And when I can get a full clinical interview and then call people who know them, who can give me more information, that's invaluable. Also, looking at records to verify the information they've said. And oftentimes I'll get 3 or 4 different reports of different things, specifically with regard to alcohol and drug use. Clients also may not be good historians, especially the elderly. And people with traumatic brain injury. If you're getting very limited information due to cognitive deficits, it's really, really important for you to get that collateral information so that you can flesh out your report, so that you can do right by the person in front of you. Read all the records and then bring them in for a second interview. That's my style, and I'll let them know, listen, I haven't read any of your records, I don't know anything about you, I'm just getting it all from you because I want your perspective. And that often gets them to open up a little bit more too. And if you're only seeing someone one time, it might be better to read the records first, and then that way you can challenge them as you go, or at least take notes of all of the discrepancies. Yeah. But if you have the luxury of seeing them twice, then that other route of blank slate. But also, mine is more out of necessity because I don't have the records in front of me until a week after I've seen the person anyway. It's just the way the state works. Who's interested in your report? Well, there might be many different people that are interested in your report, and it comes back to the referral question and your audience. If it's medical providers, nursing assistants, nursing home, or psychologists, mental health providers, could be the legal system. The last thing you want to do is use a lot of jargon that will make a judge feel stupid. That's the last thing you want to do. Anhedonia. How many of you know anhedonia? How many of the Starbucks employees know what anhedonia means? No, but they might be on the jury reading your report.
Are they a doc student in psychology?
No. So that's why, if it sounds like, you know, a 5-letter word that you wouldn't be able to play in Scrabble, then go ahead and just define it. Just describe what's going on with the person. That will make the most sense at the end.